it will get better because it can't get no damn worse. That was an atrocity taking place in the Bible Belt, which is Charlotte, North Carolina. The offense was ranked like 29th in the National Football League. The passing game is ranked 30th. You've got a young, undersized, I emphasize undersized quarterback. Shannon Sharpe, the brother looks smaller than me. Okay? I'm standing next to him. I mean, he's definitely shorter. Yeah. And I'm just looking at him. He's very, very small. To put him as a rookie, as spectacular as he was coming out of Alabama, but to put him in a situation where he literally has zero protection from that offensive line. No protection whatsoever. You got a guy in Frank Reich who obviously was a former offensive coordinator, former quarterbacks coach, played a role significantly in the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl championship years ago. We get all of that over New England. But in the end, what it comes down to is that a young quarterback, that's not what Frank Reich is made to work with. He's the kind of coach that needs to be with an experienced quarterback, not a young dude he has to tutor in school and elevate. That's really the situation right there. I think it's the right move. They were lifeless. They were devoid of any kind of enthusiasm whatsoever. They clearly are just feeling awful. Their product is awful. You had to make this change, and I believe anything is going to be better than what you have subjected Bryce Young to. And by the way, Chicago's got their #1 overall pick. Lord have mercy. It's just a bad situation.
They gave away a lot.
They gave away a lot.
To get Bryce Young. Yeah, I'm not surprised by this move either. But when you look at it, and I know everybody wants to make the comparison deal, and you've probably heard it as much as I have, is that look at CJ, look what CJ is doing, look with Bryce Young. But he has a Tank Dell. He has a Nico Collins. He has a Noah Brown. You look at the offensive weapons, the skill position players that he has around him. His offensive line is much improved. Not yesterday withstanding Laramie Tunsil is a premier left tackle in all of football, although Josh Allen ate his lunch yesterday. But it's not like Bryce Young has a whole lot to work with. He doesn't have an offensive line that can protect him. They don't particularly run the ball well. They don't have skill positions that he can get the ball to. And like Stephen, they said, yes, he's undersized. And so when a guy's undersized, you need to give him weapons, give him things to work with. He has none of that. But I really couldn't give David Tepper any advice. The guy's worth $8-10 billion. But in this business, at some point in time, you got to drop anchor and you got to sit there. You can't just keep firing coaches, because you're going to keep getting the same results over and over and over again. You're going to have, and because you gave up so much to get this, you're going to have to really hit on the guys that you do select in the later rounds. Yeah. They're going to have to knock it out the park. And you're going to have to overspend in free agency, because you always have to overspend in free agency. That's the whole thing, because the guy would go back to his team if you don't overspend. So you're going to have to spend a little bit more money in free agency, and you're going to really have to knock it out the park when you draft, because when you do, because like they said, the #1 pick right now belongs to Chicago.
Are you buying that your Broncos are going to make the playoffs?
I like their chances. I think Sean Payton came to the realization, and in Seattle they had a saying, let Russ cook. But I think Sean Payton said, Russ, we're not going to let you cook. We just want you to bring the appetizer. And so that's what he's doing. Less is more. You look at the last five games, they rushed the ball for over 120 yards. Russ has not thrown for 300 yards in any of those games, and he's minimizing the turnovers. That's the recipe. The days of asking Russ to win games for us is asking an awful lot as his advanced. Now, he's not over the hill. He's not 38-40. But I'm just saying, with the talent that they have a Javonte Williams. They have a Samaje Perine. Let's run the ball. They ran the ball almost 170 yards yesterday. I think Russ had 170 yards passing, but he didn't turn it over. And that's the recipe, because the Broncos defense is very good. I'm not saying they're historically great, but they're a very good defense. They can get after your quarterback. They lock you down pretty good on the back end. And so this seems to be the recipe in order for the Broncos to go far. And I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but in order to make the playoffs, we'll find a lot more about them. They got the Houston Texans. That'll go a long way, because that'll knock them down and catapult them up into a playoff spot. So I like what the Broncos are doing right now. I love the Sean Payton's approach. He says, Russ, I need less is more in this situation.
I feel you on that. I can appreciate that. Let's pump the brakes just a touch on Russell Wilson. Yes, 20 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. I get that. Completing 68% of his passes seems to be very, very impressive. I would like to add, though, even though in this 5-game winning streak he's got 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, he's passed for fewer than 200 yards in 4 of those 5 games. So, you're not asking him to do much less.
Just bring the appetizer. We don't need you to cook anything.
I'm just saying, I'm not taking any credit away from him. I'm just not trying to throw out the parade for the brother. That's all I'm trying to say. No, I'm not. I'm not. Listen. When I'm downing you, you know, there's no hesitation.
Facts. I've worked with this man a long time.
I'm not downing the brother.
To me regularly.
I'm not downing the brother.
Molly, he's like, you know what? I'm not taking anything away from him, but
no.
Listen,
Fewer than 200 yards.
This man will roast you. Come on,
fewer than 200 yards in 4 to 5 games.
Yes.
That's not a lot to write home about. I mean, granted, you're basically saying a future Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl champion, we're applauding him for being safe and being relatively pedestrian. That's basically what you're saying.
God.
Okay, so let's understand that, okay? Having said all of that, here's where my mea culpa has to come in. When they gave up 70 to the Miami Dolphins, I talked about how the defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, I mean, you might not need to take the plane ride home. I mean, that was just an atrocity. This defense, 16 takeaways. 16 takeaways. This defense ranked 28th in points allowed, 30th in yards allowed, dead last against the rush, have given up less than 20 to 22 points a game over this 5-game winning streak.
Yes.
Somehow, some way, they have resurrected themselves, and Vance Joseph deserves a whole bunch of credit for that. We got to give the man some love. We got to give the man some credit. He has earned his money. There's a metamorphosis that has taken place that has kicked in, and the Denver Broncos has a respectable defense.
Yes.
To give up 70 in a game this year, and now we're talking about their defense in a very respectable way that's essentially leading them in this 5-game winning streak. We got to give props where props is due. So I will say that. They ran the football 169 yards yesterday.
Yep.
They sacked P.J. Walker 4 times after knocking DTR out of the game.
Yeah.
I get all of that. It's really good to see. Wasn't expecting much from the Browns with Deshaun Watson being out anyway. I got it. But nevertheless, you did what you were supposed to do. Denver deserves a lot of credit, but Sean Payton took heat, calling out Nathaniel Hackett the way that he did. Turns out he was right.
Yeah.
We look at Vance Joseph. We was taking a lot of heat, deservedly so.
Gave up
Look at what
70
he's done. Sean Payton and Vance Joseph has reminded us what coaching does in the National Football League, more so than in other places. What coaching does in the National Football League, it truly, truly matters. I got to give credit where credit is due in that regard.
So Russell's probably playing top 10 quarterback ball?
Yeah, I had top 11, if you remember. I said top 11. I didn't have him in the top 10.
Right.
I had him outside the top 10. You had him in your top 10. But he's a pedestrian. You know, he's been relatively pedestrian. That's really what it is. It is what it is. Okay?
So he leading the league in touchdown interception is pedestrian? God bless you, man.
Less than 200 yards passing in the last 4 games.
Against the defense that is unreal.
In the last 4 games. I'm not getting caught away with that. I'm not getting caught up in that. You ain't even passing 200 yards.
Right now, I would be surprised if Denver doesn't make the playoffs. Their schedule the next, what are they, 6 and 5 for the next 6 games is not tough. I think two teams. So you look, Shannon, your point, at Houston and then at Detroit, probably, you know, their 2 toughest games, and they might be able, Detroit, we'll see how their defense is playing. So here's the way I look at this game, because, Shannon, you talked about, like, they're asking them to bring the appetizers. I don't eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch often. I love dinner.
Intermittent
That's all
fasting.
they're doing is all they're doing is asking Russ to just cook dinner. If you look at the game, he's just making plays on 3rd down.
That's it.
That's all. They're not asking him to be. Now, the plays he's making on 3rd down are baller plays, though.
Yes.
Like, they're vintage Russell Wilson plays.
Correct.
They're just not asking him to do it on 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Sean Payton has done, is Sean Payton has said, hey, let's be really good on 1st and 2nd down, and then go cook on 3rd down, Russ. Go make plays on 3rd down. That's a 3rd down clip. They used his legs a little bit in designed run. There's 3rd downs where he's evading pressure in the pocket. This is the best pressure quarterback in football by the numbers right now. I think he's got 9 touchdowns, no picks versus pressure. So the 3rd down stuff is when he's moving in the pocket and making plays. The 3rd down pass to Trotman is a 3rd down, the touchdown pass to Trotman. So I think that's the big difference, this play. Yeah, that throw. So that's the thing for me, is he's still vintage Rush, only in moments. And that's the job that Sean Payton's done.
But let me say this real quick.
Takes care of the football.
In the last 7 weeks, since losing on October 8th to the New York Jets, the Denver Broncos have not given up more than 22 points in a game, even though they've played Kansas City twice, Green Bay, Buffalo, and Minnesota.
Yeah.
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 Now that's impressive.